The delivery room door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through the sterile corridors of Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Adaeze Okafor clutched her swollen belly as another contraction ripped through her body, her screams piercing the air like a siren of betrayal. But the man who had promised to love and cherish her was already halfway down the hallway, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice tender with words meant for another woman. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. Chioma, baby, I'm coming. The contraction started? Don't worry, I'll be there in 20 minutes, Emeka whispered into his phone, completely oblivious to his wife's anguished cries just meters away. His expensive Italian shoes clicked against the hospital tiles as he abandoned the woman who had given him 7 years of marriage and was about to give him his first child. Adaeze had built their life from nothing. When she met Emeka Okafor at the University of Lagos, he was just another economics student with big dreams and empty pockets. She was the daughter of a successful textile merchant in ABA, her family's wealth evident in her designer handbags and luxury car. But she saw something in Emeka's ambitious eyes, something that made her invest not just her heart, but her family's money into his construction business. The business had flourished beyond their wildest dreams. Okafor Construction now owned half the high-rise buildings sprouting across Lagos Island. Their Lekki home was featured in architectural magazines, complete with a swimming pool that reflected the city's glittering skyline. Adaeze had sacrificed her own career in international business to play the perfect wife, hosting dinner parties for Emeka's clients and managing their household with military precision. But success had changed Emeka. The humble student who once walked her to class carrying her books had transformed into a man who collected beautiful things like trophies. And his latest acquisition was 23-year-old Chioma Nwankwo, a former beauty queen turned Instagram influencer who had captured his attention at a charity gala 6 months ago. As Adaeze gripped the hospital bed rails, fighting through another wave of pain, she remembered the signs she had chosen to ignore. The late nights that became later, the business trips that seemed unnecessary, the way Emeka's phone had suddenly become password protected. She had confronted him once, finding receipts for expensive jewelry she had never received, only to be dismissed as paranoid and hormonal. Mrs. Okafor, your husband, where is he? Dr. Amara asked, her brow furrowed with concern as she examined the monitors tracking the baby's heartbeat. He stepped out, Adaeze managed between gritted teeth, too proud to admit the truth even to herself. The baby was coming whether Emeka was there or not, and the complications Dr. Amara's expression suggested made his absence even more devastating. Through the delivery room window, Adaeze caught a glimpse of Emeka in the parking garage, climbing into his black Range Rover. The same car she had helped him buy with her family's money. The same car that was now speeding toward his pregnant mistress, while his wife fought to bring their child into the world alone. The irony wasn't lost on her. While she labored to deliver his legitimate heir, Emeka was racing to comfort the woman carrying his bastard child. Chioma's pregnancy, Adaeze had discovered just 2 weeks ago through a mutual friend's careless social media post, was already 5 months along. The timeline made her stomach turn. Emeka had been with both women simultaneously, playing devoted husband by day and passionate lover by night. Push, Mrs. Okafor. I can see the baby's head. Dr. Amara's voice cut through her rage, bringing her back to the moment that should have been the happiest of her life. As their son entered the world with a healthy cry, Adaeze made a silent promise through her tears. This betrayal, this public humiliation, this abandonment in her most vulnerable moment, none of it would go unanswered. Emeka had chosen his side, and now she would show him exactly what he had lost. But first, she had a phone call to make. Her fingers trembled as she reached for her phone, scrolling to a contact she had hoped never to use. Detective Inspector Kola Adenuga had been a family friend for years, and his expertise in financial crimes might just be exactly what she needed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of the Okafor mansion as Adaeze cradled her 3-day-old son, Chukwemeka, named ironically after the father who hadn't bothered to visit them in the hospital. The house felt different now, larger, emptier, like a beautiful shell hiding something rotten inside. Emeka hadn't come home since the birth. His brother Ikechukwu had been the one to drive Adaeze and the baby home from the hospital, his embarrassment evident in the way he couldn't meet her eyes. The family WhatsApp group had been buzzing with whispered conversations that stopped whenever Adaeze entered a room during the naming ceremony that Emeka had missed entirely. "Adaeze and WAM, you need to eat something," her mother-in-law, Mama Okafor, said softly, setting a tray of pepper soup beside the nursery chair. The older woman's voice carried the weight of a mother watching her daughter-in-law's world crumble. "My son, he will come to his senses." But Adaeze had moved beyond hoping for Emeka's return to sanity. She had spent the last 3 nights researching, planning, and making calls while her son slept peacefully in his designer crib. The same determination that had built their empire would now be turned toward its destruction, or at least toward claiming what was rightfully hers. Her phone buzzed with a text from Detective Inspector Kola. "Meet me at the office tomorrow. Bring everything." Everything. Adaeze smiled grimly as she looked around the nursery. Emeka had insisted on putting everything in joint names when they married: the house, the cars, the business accounts. It had seemed romantic then, a symbol of their unity. Now it would be his downfall. The front door chimed, and Adaeze heard familiar voices in the foyer. Her heart sank as she recognized the high-pitched laugh she had grown to despise. Through the nursery window, she watched Emeka emerge from his Range Rover, his arm protectively wrapped around a visibly pregnant Chioma Nwankwo. The audacity was breathtaking. He was bringing his mistress to their family home, 3 days after abandoning his wife in labor. Chioma looked radiant in her form-fitting yellow dress, her pregnancy glow evident even from a distance. Her social media followers would probably see this as a romantic gesture, the successful businessman introducing his new love to his family home. They wouldn't know about the wife upstairs, nursing his legitimate son while he played house with his side piece. Adaeze could hear them in the living room now, Emeka's voice carrying up the stairs as he gave Chioma a tour like she was a potential buyer rather than a homewrecker. "This is where we'll raise our children," she heard him say, and something cold and final settled in her chest. Their children. Not his children with Adaeze. His children with Chioma. She placed baby Chukwemeka in his crib and walked to the top of the grand staircase. From there, she had a perfect view of the woman who had stolen her husband. Chioma was younger than Adaeze had realized, probably closer to 20 than 25, with a kind of flawless skin that came from good genes and expensive treatments. Her belly was rounded but neat, nothing like the swollen discomfort Adaeze had endured for months. "Oh, Emeka, it's beautiful," Chioma gushed, running her manicured fingers along the Italian leather sofa that Adaeze had spent weeks selecting. "I can already picture our family here." Emeka beamed with pride, the same expression he had worn when showing Adaeze the house for the first time 7 years ago. "Wait until you see the master bedroom," he said, leading her toward the stairs. That was when he looked up and saw Adaeze standing there, still in her nursing gown, her post-pregnancy body a stark contrast to Chioma's glowing beauty. For a moment, the mask slipped, and she saw something that might have been shame flicker across his features. "Adaeze," he said carefully, as if addressing a dangerous animal. "We need to talk." "Do we?" Adaeze's voice was calm, controlled. "I thought your actions spoke loud enough. Congratulations, by the way. When is the baby due?" Chioma's confident smile faltered slightly as she realized who she was facing. This wasn't just any woman. This was the wife, the obstacle she had been competing with for months. "December," Emeka answered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Adaeze, please let me explain." "Explain what?" "How you left me screaming in a hospital bed to comfort her. How you missed your son's birth, his naming ceremony, his first days of life." Adaeze descended the stairs slowly, each step measured and deliberate. "Or maybe you want to explain how you've been stealing from our joint accounts to pay for her lifestyle." The last accusation hit home. She saw Emeka's jaw tighten, his businessman's poker face sliding into place. But it was too late. She had seen the guilty flinch, and more importantly, Chioma had seen it too. Stealing? Emeka, what is she talking about? Chioma's voice rose an octave, her Instagram-perfect composure cracking. Nothing, baby. She's just emotional after the birth. Hormones, Emeka said, reaching for Chioma's hand. But the damage was done. Adaeze smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach her eyes. Detective Inspector Adaeze is very interested in our financial records, Emeka. Especially the unexplained transfers to offshore accounts. The ones that started right around the time you met. What's your name again? The silence stretched between them like a loaded weapon. Chioma's eyes darted between Emeka and Adaeze, pieces of a puzzle she hadn't known she was part of clicking into place. From upstairs, baby Chukwemeka began to cry, his innocent wails echoing through the tension-filled mansion. As Adaeze turned to tend to her son, she caught Chioma staring at her with something that looked almost like pity. But pity was the last thing Adaeze needed. What she needed was justice, and she was just getting started. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. What do you think of Chioma's reaction? Let me know in the comments. The gleaming towers of Lagos Island stretched toward the cloudy sky as Adaeze navigated through the morning traffic, baby Chukwemeka sleeping peacefully in his car seat. 2 weeks had passed since the confrontation at the mansion, and Emeka had made his choice clear by moving Chioma into a luxury apartment in Ikoyi while avoiding his wife and son entirely. Detective Inspector Kola Adanuga's office occupied the 15th floor of a modern building overlooking the lagoon. The walls were lined with commendations and photographs from his 20-year career in financial crimes. But it was the stack of documents on his mahogany desk that commanded Adaeze's attention. What you suspected is worse than we thought, Kola said, removing his reading glasses and leaning back in his leather chair. His voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too many marriages destroyed by greed. Your husband has been systematically moving money out of your joint accounts for 8 months. We're talking about 47 million naira so far. Adaeze felt the blood drain from her face. 47 million naira, nearly $100,000. Money that belonged to both of them, money from her family's initial investment, money meant for their son's future. Where did it go? She asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Property purchases in Chioma Nwankwo's name. A boutique in Victoria Island. High-end jewelry. And here's the interesting part. Kola slid a photograph across the desk. A wedding venue deposit for January 2024. Seems your husband has been planning his next marriage while still married to you. The photograph showed a receipt from the Landmark Event Center, one of Lagos's most exclusive wedding venues. The deposit alone was worth more than most people's annual salary. Emeka wasn't just planning to leave her. He was planning to replace her entirely, using their money to fund his fantasy life with a younger woman. Can we stop the transfers? Adaeze asked, her legal mind already working through possibilities. Already done. I had the accounts frozen yesterday, pending investigation. Kola's smile was grim but satisfied. Your husband is about to discover that funding a double life is expensive when the money stops flowing. As if summoned by their conversation, Adaeze's phone began ringing. Emeka's name flashed on the screen, the first time he had called since the hospital. Answer it, Kola suggested, gesturing to the recording equipment on his desk. Let's see how he explains himself. Adaeze accepted the call, putting it on speaker. Emeka's voice filled the office, tight with panic and rage. Adaeze, what the hell did you do? My cards are being declined everywhere. The business accounts are frozen. Do you have any idea what this could do to our company? Our company? Adaeze's voice was ice cold. The same company you've been robbing to fund your mistress's shopping sprees? The same company you abandoned when you decided playing house was more important than your actual family. This is about business, not personal issues. You're jeopardizing everything we built. Everything I built, Adaeze corrected. With my family's money, my connections, my sacrifice. While you were out making babies with Instagram influencers, I was the one actually running our empire. The line went quiet except for Emeka's harsh breathing. When he spoke again, his voice had taken on the manipulative tone she remembered from their early arguments. Ada, please. Think about what you're doing. Think about Chukwuemeka. He needs his father. We can work this out. Chioma. She doesn't have to mean anything. She's just a mistake. Adaeze looked at Detective Inspector Kola, who was shaking his head with disgust. She had heard this song before, the desperate plea of a man caught in his lies, trying to convince his victim that she was the problem. A mistake that's 7 months pregnant with your child? A mistake you've spent 47 million naira on? A mistake you chose over your son's birth? Adaeze's voice rose with each word. No, Emeka. The only mistake here was me believing you were a man of honor. 47 million? That's not accurate. I can explain the transfers. To Detective Inspector Adaeze. I'm sure he'd love to hear your explanation. The silence that followed was deafening. Oh, did I forget to mention? The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is very interested in your creative accounting methods. She could practically hear Emeka's world crashing down through the phone. The EFCC didn't play games when it came to financial fraud, especially when it involved amounts this substantial. His construction company, built on government contracts and careful reputation management, couldn't survive a corruption investigation. You're destroying everything, Emeka whispered, and for the first time since their marriage began falling apart, he sounded genuinely afraid. No, Adaeze replied, gathering the documents from Kola's desk. I'm protecting everything. From you. She ended the call and turned to the detective, who was already pulling up more files on his computer. There's something else, Kola said, his expression serious. We've been monitoring Chioma's social media accounts as part of the investigation. She posted this yesterday. He turned his laptop screen toward Adaeze, showing an Instagram story from Chioma's verified account. The image showed a positive pregnancy test with the caption, "Baby number 2 loading. 2 hearts, #blessed, #baby Okafor. Baby number 2, which meant Chioma was pregnant again, barely 7 months after her first pregnancy with Emeka. The timeline made Adaeze's head spin with the implications. How is that even possible, she breathed. According to her medical records, which we obtained through legal channels, of course, she's 8 weeks pregnant. Which means she got pregnant again while still pregnant with the first baby. Adaeze finished, the full scope of the betrayal hitting her like a physical blow. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll regret it. Some secrets are better left buried. A friend. Adaeze showed the message to Kola, whose expression darkened immediately. Looks like someone doesn't want us investigating your husband, he said, already reaching for his secure phone to call his team. Which means we're definitely on the right track. But as they prepared to leave his office, neither Adaeze nor Detective Kola noticed the black sedan that had been parked across the street for the past hour, its occupants photographing everyone who entered and left the building. The game was about to get much more dangerous. If you're enjoying this story of revenge and justice, smash that like button and share it with someone who loves a good plot twist. What do you think that threatening text means? Comment below. The fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor cast everything in a sterile, unforgiving glow as Adaeze rushed through the emergency department doors, baby Chukwuemeka crying in her arms. But she wasn't here as a patient. She was here to see Chioma Nwankwo, who had been admitted 3 hours earlier with what the gossip blogs were calling pregnancy complications. Adaeze's informant, Nurse Folake, met her near the elevator with a grim expression. They had been friends since university, and Folake's position at Lagos University Teaching Hospital had proved invaluable over the past few days. Room 412, Folake whispered, glancing around to make sure they weren't overheard. But Adaeze, you need to prepare yourself for what you're about to hear. The walk to the private wing felt like a funeral march. Through the slightly open door of room 412, Adaeze could see Chioma lying in the hospital bed, her Instagram-perfect facade replaced by the pallor of someone who had received devastating news. Emeka sat beside her, holding her hand with a tenderness that once belonged to Adaeze. There has to be something you can do, Emeka was saying, his voice strained with desperation. Money is no object. We can fly to America, Germany, anywhere. Mr. Okafor. Dr. Oyinlola's voice was gentle but firm. I understand this is difficult, but the condition is irreversible. Miss Nwankwo's body is rejecting both pregnancies. The hormone levels are too erratic, and the stress on her system. Both pregnancies. Adaeze pressed closer to the door, her heart pounding as the pieces fell into place. You're saying I'll lose them both? Chioma's voice was barely a whisper, all her social media confidence stripped away. Both babies. Dr. Oyinlola nodded gravely. The condition is called hyperemesis gravidarum, complicated by multiple gestation stress. Your body simply cannot sustain 2 simultaneous pregnancies. I'm recommending immediate intervention to save your life. Adaeze felt a complex mix of emotions wash over her. Relief, vindication, and something that might have been pity. The woman who had destroyed her marriage was about to lose everything she had stolen to obtain. There's more, Dr. Oyinlola continued, consulting her clipboard. The blood tests revealed something else. Miss Nwankwo, you've been taking fertility enhancement drugs. High doses of clomiphene citrate and gonadotropins. These medications, combined with your natural cycle, created the multiple pregnancies. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of monitoring equipment. Emeka's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, realization, then cold fury. You've been taking fertility drugs. His voice was deadly quiet. Without telling me? Chioma turned away from him, tears streaming down her cheeks. I wanted to make sure. You kept talking about how much you wanted children, how Adaeze had only given you one son. I thought if I could give you multiple babies at once. You manipulated your own body to trick me into leaving my wife. Emeka stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Do you have any idea what this has cost me? What I've lost? Adaeze almost felt sorry for Chioma in that moment. The young woman had gambled everything on a desperate play to secure Emeka's affections, not understanding that men like him collected women the way they collected luxury cars, always looking for the next upgrade. I did it for us. Chioma sobbed. You said you wanted a big family. You said Adaeze was cold, couldn't give you what you needed. You thought you could baby trap me with artificial pregnancies? Emeka's laugh was bitter and cruel. Did it ever occur to you that maybe I lied to you the same way I lied to my wife? The words hung in the air like a confession. From her position in the hallway, Adaeze felt a strange sense of closure. This was who Emeka really was, a man who lied to everyone, who manipulated women's emotions to get what he wanted, who would abandon anyone when they were no longer useful to him. Dr. Oyinlola cleared her throat uncomfortably. I'll give you both some time to process this information. The procedure is scheduled for tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Miss Nwankwo, you'll need someone to sign as your emergency contact since you're not married. She has no one, Emeka said coldly, already moving toward the door. Her family disowned her when they found out about us. She burned every bridge to be with a married man. He brushed past Adaeze in the hallway without seeing her, his face a mask of disgust and betrayal. The irony wasn't lost on her. The man who had abandoned his wife for infidelity was now feeling betrayed by his mistress's deception. Adaeze waited until his footsteps faded before stepping into the hospital room. Chioma looked up with red-rimmed eyes, startled to see the woman whose life she had tried to steal. Come to gloat? Chioma asked weakly. No, Adaeze said honestly, adjusting baby Chukwemeka in her arms. I came to see what kind of person could destroy a marriage for Instagram likes and designer bags. Chioma's face crumpled. I'm dying, aren't I? The doctor won't say it, but I can see it in her eyes. Maybe not. But you're definitely learning what I learned. Emeka Okafor only loves Emeka Okafor. Adaeze moved closer to the bed. The question is, are you going to let him destroy you completely? Or are you going to help me make sure he pays for what he's done to both of us? Chioma looked up sharply, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time since Adaeze had entered the room. What are you proposing? A partnership, Adaeze said, her voice steady and determined. You know things about Emeka that I don't. Business dealings he kept hidden from me. People he's been meeting with, money he's been moving. Help me expose everything, and I'll make sure you're not left with nothing when this is over. Outside the hospital room window, the Lagos skyline glittered with promise and possibility. Two women, both betrayed by the same man, were about to become the most dangerous alliance Emeka, Okafor, had ever faced. But neither of them noticed the hospital security camera that had been repositioned to capture their conversation, or the man in the expensive suit watching the feed from a mobile device in the parking garage below. Drop a comment below. Do you think Chioma will help Adaeze get revenge, or is this another trap? Don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. The elegant conference room on the 23rd floor of Sterling & Associates overlooked Victoria Island's bustling financial district, but the tension inside made the panoramic view irrelevant. Adaeze sat across from Lagos's most feared divorce attorney, barristers Kemi Sterling, while baby Chukwemeka slept peacefully in his carrier beside her chair. Your husband's legal team filed a countersuit this morning, Kemi announced, sliding a thick document across the polished mahogany table. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against the paper with the precision of a woman who had destroyed more marriages than malaria. He's claiming you've been embezzling from the construction company to fund a gambling addiction. Adaeze nearly choked on her water. A gambling addiction? I've never even bought a lottery ticket. They have receipts from the Eco Hotel Casino, large cash withdrawals from your joint account, surveillance footage of someone matching your description at the high-stakes poker tables. Kemi's expression was grim. Someone's been very busy building a case against you. The documents showed a trail of evidence that would have been impressive if it weren't completely fabricated. Bank statements, casino receipts, even blurry photographs that could have been anyone in a hijab and designer dress. Emeka's lawyers had been thorough, but they had made one crucial mistake. These transactions all occurred while I was in the hospital giving birth, Adaeze pointed out, checking the dates against her medical records. I was in labor for 18 hours, then stayed for 3 days for observation. There are dozens of witnesses, medical records, video footage. Exactly what I was hoping you'd say. Kemi smiled like a shark scenting blood. Your husband's legal team just handed us proof of perjury and document forgery. We can destroy them in court. But Adaeze's phone was already buzzing with an urgent message from Chioma. Emergency. Meet me at the Radisson Blu, room 1247. Come alone. They know about our deal. The ride to Victoria Island felt like navigating through quicksand. Every traffic light and pedestrian crossing amplifying Adaeze's growing sense of urgency. She had spent the last week building a case with Chioma's inside information about Emeka's business practices, including off-the-books construction projects and kickbacks from government officials. Hotel room 1247 was on the executive floor, far from prying eyes and curious ears. Chioma opened the door wearing dark sunglasses that couldn't quite hide the bruises around her left eye. She looked fragile and frightened, nothing like the confident woman who had once stolen another woman's husband. He knows, Chioma said without preamble, deadbolting the door behind Adaeze. About us working together, about the evidence I've been gathering. He came to see me after the surgery yesterday. You had the procedure? Adaeze asked, noticing Chioma's pale complexion and the way she moved carefully, like someone nursing internal wounds. Both babies are gone, Chioma whispered, collapsing onto the hotel room's king-size bed. 7 months of pregnancy, all those fertility drugs, risking my life for a man who called me damaged goods when he found out what I'd done. The raw pain in her voice was unmistakable. Whatever Adaeze thought of Chioma's choices, no woman deserved to lose children and be abandoned in the same week. What did he say when he came to see you? Chioma reached under the mattress and pulled out a small recording device. I recorded everything. He offered me money to leave the country and never come back. When I refused, she gestured to her bruised face. He's not the charming businessman everyone thinks he is. She pressed play, and Emeka's voice filled the hotel room, cold and calculating in a way Adaeze had never heard before. You think you can threaten me with pillow talk and business secrets? I built an empire while you were still in secondary school. One phone call and you'll disappear like you never existed. I'm not threatening you, Emeka. I just want what's fair. Fair. Emeka's laugh was cruel. Fair was keeping your mouth shut and playing the grateful mistress. Fair was not getting pregnant with someone else's baby and trying to pass it off as mine. The recording went quiet except for the sound of a sharp slap and Chioma's gasp of pain. Someone else's baby? Adaeze stopped the recording, staring at Chioma with new understanding. The fertility drugs weren't just to ensure pregnancy. You were covering up an affair. Chioma nodded miserably. I was seeing someone else before Emeka. A photographer named David. When I realized I was pregnant, I wasn't sure who the father was. The fertility drugs were supposed to make it look like I got pregnant after I started dating Emeka. But the second pregnancy was definitely his? Yes. The DNA test confirmed it after. Chioma's voice broke. After I lost them both. Adaeze felt pieces clicking into place like a complex puzzle. That's why he's so desperate to discredit you. It's not just about the business secrets, you know. He's afraid you'll expose that he's been publicly claiming children that might not have been his. Her phone rang, interrupting the moment. Detective Inspector Cola's name flashed on the screen. Adaeze, where are you? Don't go home. Don't go to your office. Meet me at the Federal High Court immediately. What's happening? Your husband just filed charges against you for corporate fraud and embezzlement. He claims you've been stealing from government construction contracts. The EFCC is issuing a warrant for your arrest within the hour. The room seemed to tilt around Adaeze. Everything she had built, every move she had made to protect herself and her son, had been anticipated and countered. Emeka wasn't just defending himself. He was waging total warfare. There's more, Kola continued. The prosecutor handling your case is Barrister Chukwudi Okafor, your husband's cousin. This whole thing is a setup. Adaeze looked at Chioma, who had gone completely pale. We need to get out of here. Now. But as they gathered their things, the hotel room door exploded inward. 6 EFCC operatives in tactical gear stormed in, weapons drawn and badges flashing. Adaeze Okafor, you're under arrest for conspiracy to defraud the federal government of Nigeria. You have the right to remain silent. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, Adaeze caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the hotel corridor. Emeka stood there with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, watching his wife's destruction with the satisfaction of a man who had just won a war. But he had made one crucial mistake. In his arrogance, he had forgotten that Chioma was still free, still recording, and now more motivated than ever to bring him down. OMG, did you see that coming? Hit that like button if you're as shocked as I am. What do you think Chioma will do now that Adaeze has been arrested? Comment your predictions below. The holding cell at the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission headquarters smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Adaeze sat on the narrow metal bench, still wearing the designer dress she had put on for her meeting with Kemi Sterling 12 hours ago. Her breasts ached with milk meant for baby Chukwemeka, who was now with her mother-in-law, while his mother faced charges that could put her in prison for 20 years. The irony was suffocating. While she sat accused of stealing government money, the real thief was probably celebrating with champagne and younger women. Mrs. Okafor, a young EFCC officer, approached her cell, his face showing a mix of professionalism and sympathy. Your lawyer is here. But it wasn't Kemi Sterling who walked into the interview room. Instead, a tall, distinguished man in his 50s extended his hand with a confidence that immediately commanded attention. Mrs. Okafor, I'm Barrister Femi Falana Jr. I've been retained by an anonymous benefactor to represent you in this matter. Adaeze recognized the name immediately. The Falana family had been fighting corruption in Nigeria for decades. Having one of them take your case meant either you were completely innocent or someone with serious resources believed in your cause. Who hired you? That information is confidential, but I can tell you they've provided evidence that will not only clear your name, but expose the real criminals in this case. He opened his briefcase and spread documents across the metal table. Your husband has been more careless than he realized. The first document was a bank statement from a Cayman Islands account in Emeka's name, showing deposits totaling over 200 million naira. Money that should have been in their joint Nigerian accounts. The second was a series of WhatsApp messages between Emeka and someone named Lagos Connect discussing percentage payments for government contracts. How did you get these? Adaeze asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. Your anonymous benefactor has been very thorough in gathering evidence. They've also provided this. He slid a USB drive across the table. Audio recordings of your husband discussing bribery schemes with several high-ranking government officials. Before Adaeze could respond, the interview room door opened and Detective Inspector Kola entered with a grim expression. We have a problem, he announced. Chioma Nwankwo was found dead in her hotel room 2 hours ago. The words hit Adaeze like a physical blow. Whatever she thought of Chioma's choices, the young woman had been trying to make things right in the end. Now she was gone, and with her, potentially, their strongest evidence against Emeka. Suicide. Barrister Falana asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected otherwise. That's what the preliminary report suggests. Overdose of sleeping pills, suicide note on hotel stationery. Kola's expression was skeptical. But the handwriting doesn't match samples from her social media accounts, and the security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned for a 2-hour window around the time of death. Adaeze felt the walls closing in around her. Chioma had been her ally, her source of inside information, and now she was conveniently dead just as the case against Emeka was building momentum. There's something else, Kola continued. We found this in her hotel room. He placed an evidence bag containing Chioma's phone on the table. She sent several files to a cloud storage account before she died. Videos, audio recordings, financial documents. Everything you'd need to destroy Emeka Okafor's empire. Can we access the files? Barrister Falana asked. The account is password protected, and it's set up to delete everything if we enter the wrong password 3 times. Kola's frustration was evident. We need someone who knew her well enough to guess her passwords. Adaeze closed her eyes, thinking back to her conversations with Chioma in the hospital. The young woman had been desperate for validation, for someone to see her as more than just a pretty face or social media influencer. She had talked about her dreams, her fears, her desire to be remembered for something meaningful. Try Legacy 2024, Adaeze said suddenly. She kept talking about wanting to leave a legacy, something that would matter after she was gone. Kola input the password on his secure device. After a moment that felt like an eternity, files began appearing on the screen. Videos of Emeka discussing bribes, audio recordings of him threatening contractors, bank statements showing the movement of millions in government funds. This is enough to bring down half the construction industry in Lagos, Barrister Falana whispered, scrolling through the evidence. Your husband wasn't just stealing from your marriage, he was stealing from the entire country. But the most damaging file was a video recorded just hours before Chioma's death. In it, she sat on the hotel bed, speaking directly to the camera with the clarity of someone who knew they were running out of time. My name is Chioma Nwankwo, and if you're watching this, it means Emeka Okafor has killed me. I want the world to know that everything I'm about to reveal is the truth. I have proof of corruption, bribery, and money laundering that goes all the way to the top of a Lagos state government. The video continued for 23 minutes, detailing a web of corruption so extensive that it implicated dozens of government officials, contractors, and businessmen. Emeka wasn't just a cheating husband. He was the center of a criminal enterprise that had stolen billions from infrastructure projects meant to help ordinary Nigerians. This changes everything, Kola said, his voice filled with the excitement of a detective who had just cracked the case of his career. We're not just talking about marital infidelity anymore. This is organized crime. As if summoned by their conversation, Adaeze's phone began buzzing with news alerts. Social media was exploding with leaked snippets from Chioma's files. #EmekGate was trending on Twitter, and investigative journalists were already connecting dots that would destroy reputations and end careers. How did the files get leaked? Adaeze asked. Chioma set up an automatic release, Barrister Falana explained, reviewing more documents on his tablet. If she didn't input a specific code every 12 hours, everything would be sent to major news outlets and social media platforms simultaneously. Emeka's empire wasn't just cracking. It was collapsing in real time, broadcast live to millions of Nigerians hungry for justice. The same social media platforms where Chioma had once flaunted her relationship with a married man were now destroying him with evidence she had gathered during their affair. "There's one more thing," Kola said, his expression serious. "The suicide note wasn't just fake. It was a confession that would have implicated you in the corruption scheme. Someone wanted Chioma dead, and you framed for murder." The realization hit Adaeze like ice water. This wasn't just about a cheating husband trying to silence his mistress. Someone with serious power and resources was orchestrating a cover-up that would have destroyed both women while protecting the real criminals. "Who has that kind of reach?" she asked. Before anyone could answer, the interview room door burst open and Commissioner of Police Adaeze Lawal entered with a full security detail. His face was grave, and the tension in his shoulders suggested he was delivering news that would change everything. "Mrs. Okafor, you're being released immediately. All charges have been dropped." His voice was formal, official. "We have reason to believe you and Miss Nwankwo were both victims of a larger conspiracy that includes members of the Lagos state government." As the handcuffs came off and Adaeze gathered her belongings, she caught a glimpse of the news playing on the interview room's television. Emeka's face filled the screen, but he wasn't the confident businessman she had married. This was a man in handcuffs, being perp-walked into the same building where she had just been freed. The war was far from over, but for the first time in months, Adaeze felt like she might actually win. What a twist. Are you Team Adaeze, or do you think there's more to this story? Smash that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments who you think was really behind Chioma's death. The morning sun painted Lagos Island in shades of gold and amber as Adaeze stood on the balcony of her mother's house in Surulere, watching the city wake up through the haze of harmattan dust. 3 days had passed since her release from EFCC custody, and the media circus surrounding #EmekGate showed no signs of slowing down. Her phone buzzed constantly with interview requests, but she ignored them all. There would be time for public statements after she understood exactly what she was dealing with. Baby Chukwemeka stirred in his crib inside. His soft coo's a reminder of what she was truly fighting for. Not revenge, not vindication, but the future of her son and the legacy she would leave him. "Ada, you have visitors," her mother called from downstairs, using the childhood nickname that brought back memories of simpler times. In the modest living room sat two people Adaeze hadn't expected to see together, Detective Inspector Kola, and a woman she recognized from newspaper photos, but had never met in person. Senator Amara Adichie was one of Lagos State's most powerful politicians, known for her anti-corruption stance and her ability to destroy careers with a single parliamentary speech. "Mrs. Okafor." Senator Adichie rose from the sofa with the grace of someone accustomed to commanding rooms full of powerful men. "I apologize for the informal visit, but recent events have made discretion necessary." "Senator, I'm honored, but I'm not sure why." "Because your husband's criminal enterprise threatened to expose something much larger than marital infidelity," the senator interrupted, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades navigating Nigerian politics. "The corruption network he was part of includes members of my own party, judges, police commissioners, and business leaders who collectively control billions in government contracts." Detective Kola opened his laptop and began displaying financial charts that looked like a spider web of interconnected transactions. "We've been investigating this network for 2 years, but we could never get close enough to the key players. Your husband's pillow talk with his mistress gave us the breakthrough we needed." Chioma recorded everything, Adaeze realized. Not just Emeka's conversations, but phone calls with his business partners, meetings with government officials, even strategy sessions about which contracts to bid on. Exactly. But here's what you need to understand. The people involved in this scheme won't hesitate to eliminate threats. Chioma's death was a warning meant for you. Senator Adaeze's expression was grave. They want you to take Emeka's money in a divorce settlement and disappear quietly. If you continue pushing for justice, you become a liability they can't afford. The weight of the situation settled around Adaeze like a heavy blanket. She had thought she was fighting one cheating husband, but she had stumbled into a war against a criminal network that had infected the highest levels of government. What are you asking me to do? Help us destroy them completely, Senator Adaeze said simply. You have legal access to financial records they thought were protected. Your position as Emeka's wife gives you standing to challenge business decisions that were actually criminal conspiracies. And most importantly, you have something they can't buy or intimidate, a mother's determination to protect her child's future. Before Adaeze could respond, her phone rang with an international number. She hesitated, then answered on speaker. Mrs. Okafor? The voice was crisp, professional, with a slight American accent. This is Patricia Williams from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm calling regarding assets belonging to your husband that have been traced to accounts in the United States. The room fell silent. FBI involvement meant the corruption investigation had crossed international borders, making it a matter of global concern. What kind of assets? Adaeze asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Real estate in Miami, New York, and Los Angeles, totaling approximately $60 million. Investment accounts in Delaware. And most interestingly, educational trusts set up for children we believe don't exist. Educational trusts for non-existent children. Adaeze felt sick as the implications became clear. Emeka hadn't just been stealing money. He had been preparing to flee the country and start over with a new identity, leaving behind his wife, son, and the wreckage of his crimes. We'd like to offer you immunity in exchange for your cooperation, Agent Williams continued. Your testimony about your husband's domestic activities, combined with the evidence Ms. Nwankwo gathered, could help us recover hundreds of millions in stolen funds. After the call ended, the living room felt charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Senator Adaeze and Detective Kola were offering her a chance to be part of something bigger than her personal revenge. A reckoning that could reshape the entire political landscape of Lagos State. There's something else you should know, Detective Kola said, pulling up a new file on his laptop. We've been monitoring communications between the conspiracy members since Chioma's death. They're planning something called Operation Clean Slate for next week. The communications log showed encrypted messages between government officials, businessmen, and what appeared to be hired muscle. The details were vague, but the intent was clear: eliminate all evidence and witnesses who could connect them to the corruption network. They're planning to kill me, Adaeze said matter-of-factly. Multiple targets, actually, Senator Adaeze confirmed. You, several journalists who have been investigating the story, and at least 3 other women who had relationships with network members and might have compromising information. Other women? Your husband wasn't the only married man in the group using mistresses to store information and money. It's a pattern. Wealthy, connected men creating emotional attachments with younger women, then using those relationships to hide assets and conduct business that can't be traced back to them officially. Adaeze thought about Chioma's desperation to be more than just a pretty face, her willingness to risk everything for a man who saw her as disposable. How many other young women had been seduced by powerful men who promised them the world while secretly planning their destruction. I'll do it, she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. I'll help you bring them all down. But even as she committed to the fight, Adaeze couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial. The corruption network was too organized, too sophisticated to be brought down by leaked recordings and financial evidence alone. Someone was still pulling strings from the shadows, and until she identified that person, everyone she cared about remained in mortal danger. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your son is adorable when he sleeps. It would be tragic if something happened to him. Stop cooperating with the investigation and he stays safe. Continue and join Chioma. The message included a photograph taken through the window of the exact room where baby Chukwemeka was currently napping. Someone had been watching them all along. This is getting intense. Who do you think is behind the threats against Adaeze and her baby? Drop your theories in the comments, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. The safe house in Abuja felt like a fortress and a prison simultaneously. Bulletproof windows offered views of the capital's government district, while armed guards patrolled the perimeter like silent sentinels. Adaeze paced the marble floors of the living room, baby Chukwemeka sleeping peacefully in his portable crib, blissfully unaware that his first months of life were unfolding in the middle of a war zone. It had been 72 hours since the threat against her son, and the joint task force of EFCC, FBI, and Nigerian police had moved swiftly to protect their key witness. But protection felt hollow when the enemy seemed to anticipate their every move. The photograph was taken from inside your mother's compound, Detective Inspector Kola announced, entering the room with Senator Adaeze and a woman Adaeze didn't recognize. Someone had been surveilling the house for days, possibly weeks. The unknown woman stepped forward with a confident bearing of someone accustomed to dangerous situations. Mrs. Okafor, I'm Director Funmi Agbanaya, State Security Service. We believe we've identified the person coordinating the threats against you. She placed a tablet on the coffee table, showing surveillance footage from various locations around Lagos. The same figure appeared in multiple clips, a tall woman in expensive clothing, always wearing dark sunglasses and a headscarf that concealed most of her features. We call her the coordinator. She's been present at every location where network business was conducted. Hotel meetings, restaurant conversations, even Chioma's hotel the night she died. Adaeze studied the footage carefully. Something about the woman's posture, the way she carried herself, triggered a memory she couldn't quite grasp. Do we know who she is? That's where things get complicated, Senator Adaeze said, settling into one of the leather armchairs. Facial recognition came back with no matches in our criminal databases, but the movement patterns and coordination suggest military or intelligence training. Foreign agent? More likely domestic. Someone with deep knowledge of Lagos politics and business networks. Director Agbanaya pulled up more files. But here's what's really interesting. Financial analysis shows payments from the corruption network to an account registered under the name Stella Emeka Okafor. The name hit Adaeze like a physical blow. Stella Emeka Okafor was Emeka's first wife, the woman he claimed had died in a car accident 5 years before he met Adaeze. The woman whose death had made him eligible for marriage to Adaeze's family, who valued traditional mourning periods and proper timing. That's impossible, Adaeze whispered. Stella is dead. I saw the death certificate, attended the funeral. Emeka grieved for months. Did you see the body? Director Agbanaya asked gently. The question opened a floodgate of memories Adaeze had never examined closely. The funeral had been closed casket, explained away by the severity of the car accident. Emeka had been inconsolable, supported by his family and friends who spoke of Stella in past tense with the reverence reserved for the dead. The death certificate was forged, Detective Kola revealed, spreading documents across the coffee table. Stella Emeka Okafor never died in a car accident. She disappeared from Lagos for several years, then reappeared using various identities to coordinate the activities of the corruption network. You're saying my husband's first wife faked her own death, then orchestrated a criminal conspiracy that included his second marriage? We're saying your entire relationship with Emeka was planned from the beginning, Senator Adaeze said grimly. Your family's wealth, business connections, and political influence made you the perfect target for infiltration. Stella probably identified you. Emeka courted you according to her instructions, and they've been systematically looting your family's assets for years. The revelation was so overwhelming that Adaeze had to sit down before her legs gave out completely. Every memory of her courtship and marriage suddenly looked different through this lens. Emeka's surprising knowledge of her family's business dealings, his uncanny ability to win contracts from her father's friends, his insistence on joint accounts and shared business ventures. Chioma wasn't his first affair, she realized aloud. She was another target, another woman being used to hide assets and gather information. Exactly. And when Chioma became a liability, Stella eliminated her. Director Agbanaya pulled up more surveillance footage, this time showing the mysterious woman entering and leaving Chioma's hotel on the night she died. We believe Stella has been cleaning up loose ends throughout the network, removing anyone who could expose the full scope of the operation. Adaeze's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The safe house won't protect you forever. Surrender now, and we'll make it quick. Continue fighting, and watch everyone you love die slowly. But this time, instead of fear, Adaeze felt something cold and calculating settle in her chest. The woman who had destroyed her marriage, stolen her money, and threatened her child had a name and a face. More importantly, she had made the mistake of underestimating a mother's rage. "I want to meet her," Adaeze announced, startling everyone in the room. "Absolutely not," Detective Kola protested. "She's already killed at least 2 people that we know of. And she'll kill more unless we stop her," Adaeze interrupted. "But she won't expect me to come to her. She thinks I'm hiding, terrified, waiting for protection that can't last forever." "What are you proposing?" Senator Adaeze asked, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. "I'm proposing we give Stella exactly what she wants, a meeting with the grieving widow who's ready to negotiate. But instead of surrender, she'll get the surprise of her life." Director Agbanaya and Detective Kola exchanged glances filled with professional concern, but Senator Adaeze was nodding slowly. It could work, the senator mused. Stella's psychology profile suggests classic narcissistic traits. She'd want to gloat, to explain her superiority, to watch you break down in front of her. And while she's gloating, we get the confession that ties everything together, Adaeze finished. Audio-video witnesses, everything we need to destroy the network completely. But even as they began planning what could either be justice or suicide, none of them noticed the small device hidden in the safe house's elaborate flower arrangement, a device that had been broadcasting their every conversation to a woman who was already 3 steps ahead of their best-laid plans. The final confrontation was going to be more dangerous than any of them imagined. Oh my God. Stella is alive and behind everything. What do you think will happen when these 2 women finally face each other? Comment below and make sure you're subscribed, because the next chapter is going to be insane. The abandoned warehouse in Apapa Industrial District seemed to absorb sound and light, creating an atmosphere of oppressive tension that matched the gravity of what was about to unfold. Adaeze sat in the passenger seat of an unmarked police vehicle, checking her concealed recording equipment for the 3rd time, while baby Chukwemeka slept peacefully in his carrier beside her. "Remember, you're not trying to be a hero," Director Agbanaya's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Get the confession, then signal us. We'll be monitoring everything from the adjacent building." Through the windshield, Adaeze could see the warehouse entrance, where she had agreed to meet the woman who had orchestrated years of deception and betrayal. The choice of location was symbolic. Apapa was where her father had built his textile empire, where her family's wealth had first taken root. Now, it might be where everything ended. Her phone buzzed with the expected message, "Warehouse 47. Come alone or your son dies tonight." Adaeze kissed Chukwemeka's forehead, whispered a prayer in Igbo that her grandmother had taught her, and stepped into the humid Lagos evening. The warehouse smelled of old machinery and broken dreams, its vast interior lit by a single spotlight that created dramatic shadows perfect for a final confrontation. "You came," a familiar voice said from the darkness. "I wasn't sure you had the courage." Stella Emeka Okafor stepped into the light, and Adaeze felt her breath catch. The woman was exactly as beautiful as Emeka had described, but there was something predatory in her eyes that transformed elegance into menace. She wore an expensive white dress that seemed to glow in the harsh lighting, making her look like a vengeful ghost returned from the dead. "Stella," Adaeze said simply, "I thought you were dead." "Death is just another business transaction when you have the right connections," Stella replied, circling Adaeze like a predator studying its prey. "The car accident was expensive to stage, but necessary. A dead wife is much more useful than a divorced one." "Useful for what?" "For creating the perfect widower. Tragic, wealthy, emotionally available. Exactly the kind of man a successful woman like you would find irresistible. Stella's smile was cold and calculating. Your family's background check was very thorough, but they never thought to verify a death certificate from a smaller state hospital. The confession was already more damning than Adaeze had hoped for, but she needed more details to ensure the entire network could be prosecuted. So Emeka was working for you from the beginning? Working for me? Stella laughed, a sound like glass breaking. Emeka is a weak man who thinks with his penis instead of his brain. I've been managing his entire life since university, telling him which businesses to start, which women to marry, which contracts to pursue. He's never made a single important decision without my guidance, including Chioma, especially Chioma. That little girl thought she was seducing a powerful businessman, but she was really just another piece on my chessboard. Stella's expression darkened. Unfortunately, she became too curious about the money, started asking questions that could have exposed everything. So you killed her. I eliminated a threat to our operation. The same way I'm about to eliminate you. Stella reached into her purse, pulling out a small pistol that gleamed under the warehouse lighting. The difference is, Chioma thought she was meeting Emeka for a romantic reconciliation. You know exactly why you're here. Adaeze felt her heart racing but forced herself to remain calm. The recording equipment was capturing everything, and her backup team was listening to every word. The corruption network, the stolen government funds, the fake educational trusts, that was all you? A woman has to plan for her retirement, Stella said, keeping the gun pointed at Adaeze's chest. Nigerian men think they're so clever with their business deals and political connections, but they're really just overgrown children playing with toys they don't understand. It was easy to convince them that using mistresses and second wives to hide assets was brilliant strategy instead of criminal stupidity. And when the investigation started, I activated our contingency plan. Frame the wives, eliminate the witnesses, move the money offshore, and let the husbands take the blame for everything. Stella's smile was triumphant. By next week, I'll be living in Switzerland with enough money to buy a small country, while Emeka rots in Kirikiri prison, thinking his beloved first wife died tragically years ago. The pieces were finally falling into place. Stella hadn't just faked her death and manipulated her husband. She had created an entire criminal enterprise designed to exploit the weaknesses of powerful men while positioning herself to escape consequences. There's just one problem with your plan, Adaeze said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. What's that? You assumed I was as weak and stupid as the men you've been manipulating. Stella's expression flickered with uncertainty for the first time. You're recording this conversation. Audio and video. Every confession, every threat, every detail about the network. Adaeze smiled, feeling power shift between them. But more importantly, you made the same mistake you accused Emeka of making. You underestimated the intelligence of the women around you. It doesn't matter. You'll be dead in 30 seconds, and I'll destroy whatever recording equipment you're carrying. The equipment isn't on me, Adaeze revealed. It's in my son's baby carrier, which is currently in a police vehicle surrounded by federal agents. Every word you've spoken is being broadcast live to EFCC headquarters, the FBI, and selected media outlets. Stella's face went white with rage. You stupid bitch. The warehouse exploded with activity as tactical teams stormed in from multiple entrances. Spotlight beams crisscrossed the space while armed officers surrounded Stella, who still held her weapon pointed at Adaeze's chest. Drop the gun. Drop it now. For a moment, time seemed suspended. Stella's finger tightened on the trigger, her face twisted with years of rage and calculation. Then, with a sound like a deflating balloon, she lowered the weapon and let it clatter to the concrete floor. You think you've won? She asked as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. This network has roots in every major city in West Africa. Arresting me won't stop anything. Maybe not, Adaeze agreed. But it's a start. As the police led Stella away, Adaeze felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The war wasn't over, but this battle had been won decisively. Her son would grow up knowing his mother had fought for justice, not just revenge. But in the distance, barely audible over the activity of the arrest, came the sound of her phone buzzing with a new message from an unknown number. "Impressive work, Mrs. Okafor. We should talk soon. A friend who's been watching with interest." The game was changing again, but this time, Adaeze was ready for whatever came next. Yes, justice at last. But wait, who sent that mysterious message? Drop a comment with your theories, and don't forget to smash that like button. One more chapter to go. You won't want to miss the explosive conclusion. 6 months later, the Lagos Federal High Court was packed with journalists, activists, and curious citizens who had followed the #EmekGate scandal from its explosive beginning to this moment of final judgment. Adaeze sat in the front row of the gallery, baby Chukwuemeka, now a healthy, happy infant who gurgled contentedly in her arms, blissfully unaware that his mother had just become one of the most celebrated whistleblowers in Nigerian history. Justice Adeyemi, known throughout Lagos for his uncompromising stance on corruption, looked stern and imposing in his red robes as he prepared to read the verdicts that would reshape the political landscape of Lagos State. In the matter of the Federal Republic of Nigeria versus Emeka Okafor and 37 co-conspirators, Justice Adeyemi began, his voice carrying to every corner of the packed courtroom. This court finds the defendants guilty on all charges of conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, and corruption. The courtroom erupted in applause and cheers. Adaeze felt tears of relief streaming down her cheeks as she watched Emeka, wearing the orange jumpsuit of Kirikiri prison, slump forward in defeat. The man who had abandoned her during childbirth, stolen from their marriage, and threatened their son's life would spend the next 25 years behind bars. But it was the next announcement that truly vindicated her struggle. Furthermore, Justice Adeyemi continued, "This court orders the immediate forfeiture of all assets acquired through criminal enterprise, totaling approximately 4 billion naira, to be returned to the federal government of Nigeria and the families of the victims." 4 billion naira. The scope of the theft had shocked even seasoned investigators, representing money stolen from hospitals, schools, roads, and infrastructure projects meant to improve the lives of ordinary Nigerians. Money that would now be recovered and properly used. Stella, wearing handcuffs and the same orange jumpsuit as her co-conspirators, showed no emotion as she received her sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The woman who had orchestrated years of deception and murdered at least 3 people would never see freedom again. As the court session ended and reporters rushed to get statements, Adaeze made her way through the crowd toward the exit. She had given enough interviews over the past months. Today was about closure, not publicity. "Mrs. Okafor," a familiar voice called out above the noise. Senator Amara Adichie approached with her characteristic confident stride, accompanied by a tall woman in an expensive business suit whom Adaeze didn't recognize. "Senator, congratulations on the convictions," Adaeze said, shifting Chukwuemeka to her other arm. "The congratulations belong to you," Senator Adichie replied warmly. "Your courage made all of this possible. But there's someone I'd like you to meet." The unknown woman stepped forward with a smile that seemed both professional and genuinely warm. "Mrs. Okafor, I'm Sarah Chun, representing the International Anti-Corruption Foundation. We've been following your case very closely." "My case?" "Your transformation from victim to advocate has inspired similar investigations across West Africa. The methods you used to expose the Lagos network have been replicated in Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Senegal with remarkable success." Sarah handed her an elegant business card. "We'd like to offer you a position as a regional coordinator, helping other women who find themselves in situations similar to what you experienced." The offer was tempting, but Adaeze's priorities had fundamentally shifted over the past year. "I appreciate the recognition, but my focus right now is rebuilding my life and raising my son." "Of course. But the offer remains open whenever you're ready." Sarah's smile was understanding. "In the meantime, there's something you should know. The mysterious messages you received during the investigation? They came from women in other countries who had been monitoring similar corruption networks. You're not alone in this fight." As they spoke, Adaeze noticed a commotion near the courthouse steps. Emeka was being led toward a prison transport van, His expensive suits replaced by institutional orange. His confident swagger replaced by the shuffle of a defeated man. For a moment, their eyes met across the crowded plaza. Emeka's expression was unreadable, part regret, part anger, part something that might have been respect. He had underestimated her completely, assuming she would quietly accept betrayal and divorce rather than fight for justice. Ada. Another familiar voice cut through the crowd. Her mother-in-law, Mama Okafor, approached with tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. The older woman had stood by Adaeze throughout the investigation, providing childcare and emotional support even as her own son's crimes were exposed. "I am so sorry, NWAM," Mama Okafor said, using the Igbo term of endearment that meant my child. "My son brought shame to our family, but you brought honor back to the Okafor name." "Mama, you have nothing to apologize for," Adaeze replied, embracing the woman who had become more of a mother to her than a mother-in-law. Chukwuemeka will grow up knowing that justice matters more than family loyalty, when family loyalty means protecting criminals. As the crowd began to disperse and the media circus moved on to its next story, Adaeze found herself standing alone on the courthouse steps, holding her son and looking out over the Lagos skyline that had been the backdrop for so much drama and transformation. Her phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. "Congratulations. The asset recovery means you're entitled to approximately 400 million naira as restitution. You're going to be very wealthy." But wealth felt less important now than it had a year ago. She had learned that true security came from knowing you could survive betrayal, that real strength came from protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, and that the best revenge was building a life so successful that your enemy's actions ultimately made you stronger. Another text arrived, this one from an unknown international number. "Saw the news. Well done. When you're ready for the next challenge, there are women in Dubai who could use your help. The friend who's been watching." Adaeze smiled and deleted the message without responding. There would always be another challenge, another corruption network to expose, another woman who needed help escaping a dangerous marriage. But for now, she was content to be a mother, a survivor, and a symbol of hope for women who found themselves betrayed by the men they trusted most. As she walked to her car, a modest sedan she had chosen specifically because it didn't attract attention, she felt baby Chukwuemeka shift in her arms. He was growing so fast, developing the kind of alert intelligence that suggested he would be asking questions about his father's absence soon enough. When that day came, Adaeze would tell him the truth. His father had chosen greed over family, selfishness over responsibility, and crime over honor. But his mother had chosen justice over revenge, courage over fear, and their future over the past. And in a country where corruption often seemed unstoppable, that choice had made all the difference. The Lagos traffic was surprisingly light as Adaeze drove home to the modest apartment in Ikeja, where she was rebuilding her life. No mansion, no luxury cars, no social media presence designed to attract attention. Just a woman, her son, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had fought the most important battle of her life and won. Her phone rang one final time as she pulled into her parking space. The caller ID showed a number she recognized, Detective Inspector Kola. "Adaeze, I wanted you to hear this directly from me." His voice was filled with pride and something that might have been fatherly affection. "The ripple effects from your case have led to investigations in 12 African countries. The International Criminal Court has opened files on cross-border corruption networks that your courage helped expose." "That's wonderful, Kola. But right now I just want to give my son his evening feeding and read him a bedtime story." "Of course. But Ada." He used her childhood nickname, the one reserved for family and the closest to friends. "You changed everything. Never forget that." As she climbed the stairs to her second-floor apartment, Adaeze reflected on the year that had transformed her from a betrayed wife into an international symbol of resistance against corruption. The journey had cost her a marriage, a fortune, and the naive belief that love could conquer all obstacles. But it had given her something more valuable, the knowledge that she was capable of surviving anything and protecting those she loved at any cost. Baby Chukwemeka gurgled happily as she settled into the rocking chair by the window, Lagos's endless lights twinkling like stars in the distance. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and probably new messages from women around the world who needed help escaping dangerous marriages or exposing powerful criminals. But tonight was for peace, for gratitude, and for the quiet victory of a woman who had refused to be destroyed by betrayal and had instead chosen to build something better from the wreckage of her old life. The story of Emeka Okafor's downfall would be told for years to come in Lagos business circles and Nigerian political forums. But the story of Adaeze Okafor's resurrection, that was just beginning. And in a world where powerful men still thought they could use women as disposable tools in their games of greed and ambition, that story would serve as both warning and inspiration for generations to come. The end. What an incredible journey. Did you see that coming from the beginning? This story shows that no matter how powerful the people against you, truth and justice can prevail when you're fighting for what's right. If this story inspired you, smash that like button. Subscribe to Tales by Ben for more incredible stories of triumph over betrayal. And share this with someone who needs to know that they're stronger than they think. Comment below. What was your favorite moment in this story? Which character did you connect with most? And where are you watching from around the world? Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss these powerful stories of resilience, revenge, and redemption. Until next time, remember, your current situation is not your final destination.